Welcome to the second series of the Little Bean podcast, where every episode feels like a warm hug, reminding us that we are not alone in the roller coaster of parenthood. I'm your host, Sarah Baldock, a mum to 3 amazing boys, as well as a newborn and family photographer. I've been so lucky to join hundreds of families on their parenthood journey and capture their most precious moments. Along the way, we've laughed through so many different topics around parenthood, and I thought it would be great to bring them to life in my podcast. The aim of the Little Bean podcast is to show mums and dads that you are not alone. I can pretty much guarantee everything you are feeling at various points in your journey. We've all been there. So together, let's navigate the highs and lows of being a mum and dad, from the first moment you find out you're pregnant, right up to when your babies are taller than you and embarking on their own journey. Let's cozy up and share stories all about all sorts of topics, from the little one's first cuddly to the evolving themes of a family board game, from the first books they won't let you stop reading to the once beloved TV shows that used to be on permanent repeat and now a thing of the past. Every little change marks another page turned in our family story. Yet with each soft goodbye, there's an exciting new hello. We're here to share these moments and to show you that you're not alone. It can sometimes feel like you're the only one riding these waves of emotions, but trust me, you're not. You're doing a fantastic job. Through the laughter and the tears, it's your love that makes this journey so incredibly special. Let's cherish each moment together. So while sorting out what I'm going to be cooking this week for the boys to make sure it fits in with Scouts, young leaders, cricket, football, karate, it got me thinking about how times have changed in terms of food and meal times. From those first pureed spoons to meals out that sometimes call for a little negotiation, even now, it marks how our little ones grow up. So I thought it would be fun to take a journey through the colouring milestones that mark our child's growth, seasoned with both laughter and a dash of sentimentality. Oh, weaning. I loved and hated weaning in equal measure. I was so excited to start the next chapter, but also a little sad that the very early baby phase was over. I do confess to having slight OCD about cleanliness with my oldest son, probably partly as a result of postnatal depression, which I spoke about in the first series of the Little Bean podcast. It meant that I got quite stressed about the whole sterilising thing when making up purees, which took away some of the fun, if I'm honest. But by the time my second and third boys came around, I had relaxed a lot and weaning was good fun, although the mess was still a battle. But hey, they loved all my homemade pureed butternut squash. And if you're in the thick of weaning, I can't recommend it enough, along with classic pureed apple and pear. And a big shout out to Annabelle Carmel's weaning books, total lifesavers. And you can't talk about food without talking about the momentous arrival of the first tooth, as it's such a milestone. I remember it with all 3 of my boys. I part breastfed my boys. I say part as I had to combine bottle and breastfeeding as I couldn't keep up with their demand. And I always said I wouldn't breastfeed when they started teething. I stopped breastfeeding at around 7 months with all 3 of my boys. And within 2 weeks for each one of them, they cut their first tooth. It was like they knew. While my first 2 sons breezed through teething, my youngest really felt each new tooth, and we relied heavily on Bonjela. I highly recommend it. Dining out evolves dramatically as little ones grow. Initially, you might only need a few bottles, or just yourself if you're breastfeeding. But soon it's like planning a military operation, with bowls, spoons, puree and finger foods for baby-led weaning. As they grow, it's about scouting for child-friendly menus, wishing upon every star that they have spaghetti bolognese or margherita pizza, their favourites. It's less of a hassle now, but believe me, the potential for hangry strops is always there if their favourites aren't available. The one thing I will say that got a lot easier as they progressed down the weaning route was being able to keep them happy for a while with finger foods. While the 2 to 3 hour bottle routines were precious, it did free up a little more time, being able to give them a few plain rice cakes or a breadstick while you're trying to get tea ready or ordering your meal, if you were out. My boys did also love the organics cheese puffs, but when you do give them, don't whatever you do give them when they're wearing a white baby grow. They stain everything. Oh, and the same goes for Bolognese too. No white t-shirts with Bolognese. Little ones do fancy the weirdest food combinations, don't they? Mine weren't too eccentric, although I remember a friend of my oldest who would eat ketchup with absolutely everything. And then there's mayonnaise, which, according to a 6-year-old, pairs really well with every possible food group. So, was it just me that while cutting a lemon, I gave a little slice to one of my little ones to see their reaction? Their faces are priceless, aren't they? I always said it was part of their sensory education, discovering and learning the different senses. My boys are quite adventurous with trying new flavours now. Although if they do try anything and they don't like it, they never let me forget it. And it's always my fault they don't like it. I vividly remember the number of bibs I had to take and pack every time we went out. From cotton ones to catch-all bibs, always preparing for a mess. And who else has given the catch-all bib a quick wipe, shoved it back in the bag, thinking you'll wash it later, only to find it's beyond salvation next time? Just me then? And then there's packing the change bag. When they're tiny, you pack the change bag for every eventuality. Over time, and for me especially with my third son, I got more complacent, sometimes rushing out with just a nappy and wipes. Invariably, we'd have a major explosion of some sort, and I'd regret my rash decision. I remember once with my youngest son, we were in Devon and had gone to a really nice pub for lunch. We were all sitting there at the table with my youngest in the high chair when I realised we needed a nappy change. Fine. It was only when I got to the change station did I realise the level of change required and the fact I only had one very small baby grow left in the change bag. He was almost a year old. He then spent the rest of the meal sitting in just his nappy, looking like Onslow from Keeping Up Appearances. If you know, you know. I used to dread the mess weaning entailed, never truly at ease with food ending up everywhere but in my boy's mouth. But those photos of our little ones smeared with Bolognese or butternut squash, or dozing off in their high chairs, are cherished snapshots of a wonderfully messy and precious stage. Bribery and weaning was a tactic I resorted to, especially to get my sons to eat their veggies. I'd cleverly disguise veggies under a dollop of petit filou. It worked for a while until they figured out how to bypass the veggies entirely by leaning forward and grabbing the petit filou off the front of the spoon and leaving the savoury bit. It was back to the drawing board after that. I always said before I had my boys that I would never be a mum that used bribery. Oh, how naive I was then. It was when my oldest son was about 18 months old and I was pregnant with my second son. I remember wanting to get him in the pushchair to get some shopping done, and he was having none of it. Cue the, now if you get in the pushchair, you can have some chocolate buttons. And there it was. The bribery had started. It worked though. As an aside, how does such a small number of chocolate buttons go so far and make such a mess? These days with the boys, the bribery stakes are much higher, and it's usually a sizable bar of chocolate that does the trick. So from the first puree to navigating menus with picky eaters, every spilled drink and stealthy spoon dodge is part of our collective parenting journey. It's a bittersweet mix of nostalgia for those tiny milestones and excitement for the shared meals and moments ahead. While I do look back with huge fondness at the whole weaning experience with my boys, I do also admit to now enjoying the slightly less messy culinary outings these days. The biggest challenge now is actually trying to get the boys out of the door in less than an hour, and that's on a good day. So that brings us to the end of another heartwarming episode here at the Little Bean Podcast. It's always a joy to share this journey with you, watching our little ones grow up into their big, bold selves. I love hearing about how you navigate the joys and challenges of watching your little ones grow, your stories, your tips and your tricks. So please, feel free to post your experiences, and don't forget to share this podcast with other mums and dads who are riding exactly the same emotional roller coaster. It's a beautiful reminder that we're not alone. Together, we've got this. Together, we can embrace the challenges and cherish the moments of parenthood with fun and laughter. So remember, keep cherishing those precious moments, and above anything else, you're doing an incredible job.